WADR, promoting dialogue. It's midday in Dakar and 1 o'clock in Abuja. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned to West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and around the world on WADR.org. This is NEWSLINK, and here are the top stories. Authorities in Mali say its army position hit two abandoned UN armored vehicles seized by terrorists. Nigeria's President Tinubu signs a $10.46 billion 2023 supplementary budget into law. Resistance mounts against Chad's constitutional referendum as opposition calls for process suspension. And Ghana's Electoral Commission seeks withdrawal of new constituency proposal ahead of the 2024 elections.
They submitted a request to withdraw it, and the very day of reconvening, they have submitted it for presentation, and concurrent to it, they have submitted another one for its withdrawal.
Please stay tuned for details of these stories and more.
Here is Imo Edit with NEWSLINK.
Many thanks for joining us and a warm welcome to our listener in the Gambia, Liberia and Ghana. Well, let's begin in Mali, where the army said on Wednesday that it had struck two armored vehicles abandoned according to it by the UN mission during its withdrawal and which had fallen into the hands of what it presented as terrorists in the strategic northern town of Kidal. The army said its aerial surveillance carried out Tuesday and Wednesday identified terrorists in possession of two armored vehicles abandoned by MINUSMA. Francis Boniface has the details.
The army has been carrying out airstrikes since the end of last week in Kidal in the wake of the withdrawal of MINUSMA from this town, a bastion of the Tuareg rebellion and a major sovereignty issue for the central state. Drone strikes on Tuesday killed 14 civilians, including children, according to the rebellion. The army said it targeted terrorists in the former camp of the UN mission. These strikes confirmed the fears of a confrontation for which thousands of inhabitants of the city, an historic center of the independence insurgencies, have been preparing for some time due to the disengagement of MINUSMA. Since August, the north has been the scene of a military escalation between the actors present, regular army, rebels who have just resumed hostilities, and jihadis who have not stopped but intensified them. The haste in the withdrawal of MINUSMA irritated the junta, which wanted to align this departure with the arrival of the army. The obstacles put by the junta on the evacuation forced MINUSMA to destroy or decommission parts of its equipment because it could not take it away, the mission said. Stefan Dujarric, spokesperson for the UN Secretary General, reiterated on Wednesday that the accelerated withdrawal of the last 848 peacekeepers from Kidal, which included peacekeepers from Bangladesh, Chad, Egypt, Guinea and Nepal, had taken place in dangerous conditions on 350 kilometers of road without air cover due to lack of flight authorization from the Malian authorities.
Francis Boniface reporting there. Meanwhile, Mali's High Authority for Communication has announced the assault carried out by armed groups on journalists in the northern region of Gao on Tuesday. The attack resulted in the tragic death of one journalist, another being injured and two others being abducted. Meanwhile, the Union of Free Radios and Televisions of Mali has also expressed its profound dismay. Sang Dana Mendy has more in this report by our Bamako correspondent Ali Cham.
These events trace back to Tuesday when a vehicle carrying journalists was ambushed en route to Gao for a training session. Tragically, one journalist was fatally shot and two others were taken hostage, while another journalist sustained gunshot injuries. As of now, no group has claimed responsibility for the attack. The High Authority for Communication HSC released a statement vehemently denouncing the incident as barbaric and designed to instill fear and impede the vital mission of disseminating information to the public on a daily basis. The HSC characterized the act as abhorrent, cowardly, and treacherous media professionals in the execution of their duties. The authority urged the relevant bodies and all well-intentioned individuals to prioritize the swift and safe return of the kidnapped journalists to their families. Expressing deep sorrow, the Union of Free Radio Diffusion and Televisions of Mali also condemned the attack. The events occurred just a day after another assault in the same town, targeting aid workers from a non-governmental organization, which resulted in the tragic death of an assistant project manager.
That report was found by our Bamako correspondent, Ali Cham, and voiced by Sang Denal Mendy. In Chad, as the constitutional referendum draws closer, there is increasing resistance to its execution. The National Rally for Democracy, headed by former transitional Prime Minister Bahimi Padeke Albert, stands in opposition to the referendum, proposing the suspension of the ongoing process. Abdullah Hassan reports.
Mbai Gomem Sebastian, the Executive Secretary and First Deputy of the National Rally of Chadan Democrats RNDT Lerville, said, and I quote, "This planned passage and force serves neither the interests of the people or those of the transition." The opposition party also claims to have observed irregularities in the operation of the National Commission responsible for organizing the constitutional referendum known as COREC. The members of RNDT therefore suggest suspending the referendum process and installing an independent body responsible for organizing the referendum. With the support of the Republican Platform and Political Actors Consultation Group, opposition parties intend to take a stand to prevent the referendum vote from taking place. The MPS, the party of the late President Idris Deby Itno and otherwise a supporter of the transition, has a very dim view of this. Haroum Kabadi, Secretary General of the MPS, made a statement last weekend to the effect that efforts should be focused on organizing a constitutional referendum. On Tuesday, the president of CONOREC announced the start of the electoral campaign on November 22, 2023.
Abdullah Hassan reporting there. We head now to Nigeria, where President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday signed the 2023 supplementary budget amounting to 2.17 trillion naira, approximately $10.46 billion, into law at the presidential villa in Abuja. The Federal Executive Council, FEC, chaired by the president, approved the budget during its meeting on Monday. WDL's Abuja correspondent Usman Umar reports that the Senate and the House of Representatives last Thursday passed the appropriation bill after a third reading.
Prior to the bill's enactment, the Senate endorsed the report from the consolidated sessions of both Senate and the House of Representatives on the 2023 Supplementary Appropriation Bill as presented by Senator Solomon Olamilekan Adeola, APC Ogun West, the chairman of the Appropriations Committee. The bill swiftly underwent readings in both the upper and lower chambers, with lawmakers emphasizing its significance for the country's welfare. Tinubu had formally written to the National Assembly seeking approval for the sum of 2 trillion naira as the 2023 supplementary budget, with the aim of addressing labor wage adjustments, security concerns, and other pressing issues. The president forwarded the 2024 to 2026 Medium-Term Expenditure Framework, otherwise known as MTEF, and Fiscal Strategy Paper to both houses of the National Assembly. In recent development, the Senate passed a bill totaling 819 billion naira, which includes provisions for a 500 billion naira palliative package. Tinubu highlighted the necessity of the supplementary bill to accommodate additional palliative measures, including wage adjustments. For NewsLink on West Africa Democracy Radio, Usman Umar reporting from Abuja.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. NewsLink continues.
And here in Senegal, President Macky Sall is calling for the implementation of emergency measures to mitigate the trend of irregular migration. Speaking, Sall on Wednesday urged cabinet members to take urgent security, economic, financial, and social measures to neutralize the departure of immigrants from the national territory. He said the battle to fight against irregular migration would require the Ministers of the Interior and the Armed Forces, Youth and Fisheries to expedite urgent plans. Senegal is facing a flood of departures by sea bound for the Canary Islands, Spanish Archipelago and gateway to Europe. According to the latest figures from the Spanish Ministry of Interior, the Canary Islands have recorded a number of migrant arrivals since 2006, with 30,705 people arriving between January 1 and October 31, more than double, plus 111% the figure for the same period last year. Now, ahead of Ghana's 2024 general elections, the Electoral Commission, EC, has formally requested Parliament to retract a constitutional instrument, CI, that it recently presented. This particular CI aimed to establish a new Gwan constituency for the Central Kofi, Akpafu, Likpe, and Lolobi Sal regions, which are presently unrepresented in the 8th Parliament. Reporting from Accra, WDR's correspondent Nad Edetete provides further details.
The request from the Electoral Commission has stirred a debate among Ghana's political leaders. Majority Leader Osei Mensah-Bonsu expressed the EC's concerns that the impending district-level elections might face delays if the constitutional instrument does not mature in time.
The very day of reconvening, they have submitted it for presentation, and concurrent to it, they had submitted another one for its withdrawal. My own position was that if they had spoken to me earlier, the second request would not have been necessary. Because if there's nothing before us at the time, you cannot put something on nothing. So the request to withdraw something that had not been laid was not even necessary. However, the Speaker's attitude was that people has misconstrued what was happening in Parliament.
In response, Minority Leader Dr. Kasiel Atoforsen holds a different view, suggesting that the retention of the CI in Parliament could alleviate the potential complications. He further proposed the option of postponing the district-level elections in the new Guan constituency to allow sufficient time for the necessary procedures.
You can actually hold a district-level election for one constituency after you have actually gone through the processes of electing assembly members for the other constituencies. So on that basis, the Electoral Commission has no grounds to withdraw the CI. And let me put it this way. Between the Subsidiary Legislation Committee members and the Electoral Commission, there has been an agreement.
This ongoing dialogue, political experts say, underscores the critical importance of timely and effective electoral processes in Ghana, highlighting the need for careful consideration and collaboration between the Electoral Commission and the legislative representatives.
Now, they did a reporting there. The government of Liberia has celebrated its recent milestone, considering it a notable achievement following its latest placement on the Millennium Challenge Corporation MCC scorecard. Under President George Weah's leadership, the administration has succeeded in passing 14 out of the 20 indicators outlined in the MCC scorecard, marking a significant improvement after a 5-year period. WDR's Monrovia correspondent Darlington Popper reports.
During a media briefing on Wednesday, Samuel Tue, the Minister of Finance and Development Planning, stated that the scorecard positions the country favorably to receive more than $400 million United States in assistance from the Millennium Challenge Corporation (MCC).
It's about the quality of governance in the country. We ourselves take interest in improving all of these sectors that MCC report looks at. All of these sectors take interest in improving it for the betterment of the lives of our people. The other benefit is that, yes, you get a chance to apply for a compact grant.
In response, Information Minister Lejehu Rene emphasized that this achievement showcases the government's leadership capacity to implement appropriate policy reforms that can have a positive impact on the impoverished population.
This, for us, is a very big deal. All of the international indices about Liberia in the last 3 years have documented progress. But yet, we keep hearing from our brothers on the other side of the divide that the country was headed in the wrong direction. Today, the cat has been let out of the bag.
On another note, in the streets of Monrovia, numerous Liberians expressed their elation, hoping that this development signifies the initiation of a transformative phase for the country.
Although there are challenges, but we don't let government mitigate those challenges. So commend the government highly for the job well done. But this declaration by the U.S. government has vindicated the government and the president in particular. So commend him that the president is corruption-free. The president of the government is corruption-free. 1,000-mile step begin with the first step. So the fact that the government finished in the year past, and now she has passed this time, is commendable.
At present, supporters of the administration view this as a significant endorsement for the government ahead of the upcoming run-up presidential election scheduled for November 14. For NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Darlington Popper in Monrovia.
You're listening to NEWSLINK on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM Dakar and on our partner stations across the sub-region. Here is a reminder of our top stories. Authorities in Mali say its army position hit to abandon UN armored vehicles seized by terrorists. Nigeria's President Tinubu signs a $10.46 billion 2023 supplementary budget into law. Resistance mounts against Chad's constitutional referendum as opposition calls for a process suspension. Ghana's Electoral Commission seeks withdrawal of new constituency proposal ahead of the 2024 elections. And still ahead, we do have our guest interview segment, a press review, and sports news. Please stay with us.
West Africa Democracy Radio. It's you speaking.
Don't forget, we are streaming live on Facebook, YouTube, and on our website, wadr.org. Let's bring you some financial reports now. In Benin, the Canada African Development Bank Climate Fund is extending its support to the government for climate change adaptation initiatives. The funding amounting to $36.3 million, equivalent to over 22 billion CFA francs, is provided in the form of concessional loans to private sector companies. As the Gubierika reports, these funds are allocated towards projects aimed at devising solutions to global warming and promoting best practices in ports operations.
The funding assigned to Benin incorporates $18.3 million endorsed for the restoration and enlargement of the self-governing port of Cotonou, Benin, alongside an additional $18 million designated to aid the creation of 3 seawater desalination plants as part of the eco-friendly investment initiative. As per a press release received by APA News, the Canada African Development Bank Climate Fund sanctions concessional loans for qualifying climate change initiatives in Africa. Thus far, it has greenlit $20.4 million for 2 more public sector climate change endeavors. The first initiative entails a $5.4 million concessional loan aimed at extending and fortifying agricultural, forestry, and pastoral production and value chains in Senegal, all while disseminating innovative adaptation best practices for the project beneficiaries. Regarding the second project, $15 million was provided to Nigeria to foster socio-economic growth and diminish poverty in the cities of Umuahia and Aba through the establishment of climate-resilient urban infrastructure systems, as highlighted in the AFDB's official statement.
Gubierika with that report. We're still talking figures, but in Ghana, where economist Professor Lord Mensah has drawn the connection between the challenges faced by the country's cocoa industry regulator, COCOBOD, in securing its irregular syndicated loans and the country's diminishing credit worthiness. Recent findings reveal that COCOBOD has resorted to a pre-financing agreement with trading companies such as Olam Group Limited and Barrick Helbot AG, marking the first time in 3 decades. These agreements are aimed at securing funding for critical needs like seedlings, chemicals, fertilizers, and bean purchases from farmers for the 2023-24 season. The shift towards such arrangements is driven by the difficulties COCOBOD encounters in obtaining traditional bank loans, compelling them to explore alternative funding sources, including loans from cocoa traders. Professor Lord Mensah, an economist from the University of Ghana Business School's Department of Finance, explains to WDR that most banks are now demanding higher interest rates as a prerequisite for releasing their funds.
Any investor that is dealing with Ghana will open his eyes because the economy is not the type of economy that used to be normal. And if you are lending to an institution that operates, if I'm talking about COCOBOD here, that operates in an environment that the economy is not doing well, obviously you hesitate to give out money. And even if you are going to give money or you are going to invest, you should be motivated, highly motivated. And that is calling for the interest rate, the high coupons or the high premiums that the investor community is looking out for before they take a lend to COCOBOD.
So essentially it's because the investor community thinks that we will not be able to pay back the loan. Reason?
Of course, the likelihood of payment has dwindled. I mean, for the past few months, you think the investor does not look out for information? They look out for information. We were here when the finance minister announced that he's going to set up a desk at the COCOBOD together with the Bank of Ghana governor. Why are they going to set up a desk there? It means there's kind of mismanagement ongoing at the COCOBOD. Every investor hearing this will definitely push out for higher interest before they lend to the sector. So it's not surprising. The ability to pay has gone down. And that is why the investor is looking out for that high premium or high interest rate before they can lend to us.
Professor Lord Mensah, an economist there from the University of Ghana Business School Department.
This is the newspaper review. Stay on top of the news. Get the most important stories with added insight and concise review.
This is the newspaper review.
Well, let's remain in Ghana as we join Nadede Tete for the press review.
Hi there and welcome to the Newspaper Review segment. Today, Thursday, November 9, 2023, from Accra, Ghana. Let me take you through what the major newspapers are reporting today. And I'll start off with Ghana's biggest newspaper, the Daily Graphic newspaper. The banner headline here reads, 2024 General Election, Battle of the North. Bawumia and Mahama on tough turf. Over the weekend, the governing NPP elected the Vice President, Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, as its flag bearer. Months prior to his election, the major opposition party, the NDC, also elected former President John Dramani Mahama as its flag bearer. And these two gentlemen are all of northern descent. And it's a reason the paper is talking about it going to be a battle of the North. So that's the major headline here for the Daily Graphic newspaper. In fact, it's the only headline on the front page of the Daily Graphic newspaper. The next paper is the Ghanaian Times. Banner headline, 513,336 businesses land in trouble for failing to file annual returns renewal for 3 years. The other headlines here, EPA pushes for prosecutorial powers to punish environmental offences. Another headline here reads, attacks on journalists worsening. That's according to Ghana's Information Minister, Kojo Nkrumah, and is asking the police service, the judicial service, and the various investigative bodies to do more in order to ensure that we stem the tide of attacks on journalists in the country. Ghana's ranking on the Press Freedom Index has seen a dip in recent years. I think in the past 6 years, because of these numerous attacks being recorded on journalists. And seemingly, most of these cases have gone on without sanctions. A case many journalists point to in the country is that of Ahmed Hussein Swali. As of now, those who shot and killed him have not been identified. Let me now bring you the Chronicle newspaper. The banner headline on the Chronicle newspaper reads, new twist over alleged 1,300,000 euros stolen cash. This is in relation to the former sanitation minister, Cecilia Abena Dapar. So the new twist that the paper is talking about in relation to this case is that yesterday, the circuit court discharged the suspects and then subsequently they were rearrested and fresh charges were leveled against them. So that is a new twist in relation to this case involving the former sanitation minister, Cecilia Abena Dapar. Other headlines here, Impriso MP Okujeto crosswords over dam spillage. To the next headline, Konfanoti Teaching Hospital to be transformed under $10 million facility thanks to Otumfuo, and Alan takes on Mahama and Bawumia. That's the last headline on the Chronicle newspaper. The other paper I have here, the Daily Guide newspaper, banner headline, 7 names pop up for Bawumia running mate. The final newspaper I have here is the Daybreak newspaper. So the banner headline of the Daybreak newspaper reads, hook up spreads AIDS. That's according to the Ghana AIDS Commission. It's warning people to steer clear of that. Well, this is where we wrap up the newspaper review segment. My name is Nadede Tete from Accra. Back to you in the studio.
Indeed, many thanks, Nadede.
Politics, analysis on major news, social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Well, in this segment, we take you back to Mali, where the High Authority for Communications has announced the assault carried out by armed groups on journalists in the northern region of Gao on Tuesday. The attack resulted in the tragic death of 1 journalist, another being injured, and 2 others being abducted. Also, the Union of Free Radios and Televisions of Mali has also expressed its profound dismay. Well, Mamadou Cho, journalist, is our guest, and he reacts to this and other issues.
I mean, very sad to hear such a news that a journalist is killed somewhere in the world, mostly nearby in neighboring Mali. So it's something which is unacceptable because journalists are doing their job. So they should, have security to do that.
Well, do you see this fact that journalists are getting attacked by the day increasing? I mean, this is not the first time. Similar case in Burkina Faso, where the authorities are asking journalists who critique the government, taking them to the war front. How wrong is this?
That is what is unacceptable, because in all these countries with the military leaders, they are cracking down on journalists who are, trying to do their job and criticizing the way they are handling these countries. So these people should bear in mind that the journalists are not enemies, and they should, let them do their job freely.
Does this mean that journalists are no longer safe in doing their job? And how do you think this will affect, the reportage of journalists if they are so afraid to go out to do their job?
No matter what happened, we are compelled to go and report. So that's why in all those countries, mostly or under one, military coup d'etat, is mostly a part of, the people leading those countries not expecting to be criticized. Because, even journalists in the capital cities of those countries are having hard time doing their job. So that's why, covering this hotspot where security is lacking is very risky for journalists.
I was Mamadou Cho there, I guess, on the segment. All right, let's bring on board Sankle Janko for sports updates.
Hello there, a warm welcome and thank you for joining us. Reigning on the 17 African champions, Senegal have released a 21-man squad to represent the Corps of Teranga at the FIFA on the 17 World Cup Indonesia 2023. The young talented Senegalese are going into the tournament as strong contenders after their impressive performance in the AFCON. Senegal will represent the continent alongside Mali, Burkina Faso and Morocco. The Senegalese squad is led by Amara Diouf, captain of the team and top goal scorer at the under-17 AFCON Algeria 2023. The young Cubs will be without the services of star midfielder Abdul Aziz Fall, who is nursing an injury, along with Jambar Strawale. The squad recorded 2 victories against Turkey's local teams in 2 friendlies as part of preparations ahead of the tournament. Meanwhile, Morocco's under-17 head coach Said Shiba has revealed his squad that will be headed to the FIFA Under-17 World Cup Indonesia 2023, set to take place between 10 November to 2 December, according to media reports. The squad reportedly comprised of youngsters from home and abroad that last line had their training camp in Qatar ahead of the tournament. Morocco had 3 friendlies, winning 2 against South Korea and Spanish team of Malaga under 20 before losing to England by 1-0. And Cote d'Ivoire's Atletico Abidjan were beaten by JK Queens 2-1 in the CAF Women's Champions League on Wednesday. The Tanzanian side came from behind to beat the host in an enthralling encounter. That's it for sports. It's back to you.
And we've come to the end of this edition of NewsLink from West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek for the technical assistance. Let's continue the conversation on our social media platforms: X, formerly Twitter, Instagram, RWDR News, and Facebook, West Africa Democracy Radio English Service. I am Imo Edet. Good afternoon.
And many thanks to you for listening to NewsLink via Hot 104.3 FM, New Me FM 94.0, and Veritas Radio 102.9 in Banjul, the Gambia. We also appreciate our listeners in Liberia via Alternative Youth Radio 98.9 FM, Lofa County. For you listening via Radio Pad 95.1 Damango, Savannah region, and on Royals FM 104.7